So, how is everyone here today? Good. Mumbai is. We were hanging out yesterday at the BKC complex. It's the first time I haven't been here in Mumbai in many years, and it's such a vibrant place. It's amazing. We had a lot of fun. And one of the quotes I kind of put in here is, "I feel the need for speed." That's what Tom Cruise says in one of the Top Gun movies, one of my favorite movies. And of course, we all like that adrenaline, the speed. So that was the kind of the topic and the theme we took. But let me ask you a question. So, when you're searching for something, you go to Google search, you type something you're looking for, shoes or any other gadget. And how many of you have abandoned a mobile site if it loads more than 10 seconds? 10. That's good. How about 5? 5 seconds. How about 3? Wow, we have tough crowd. So I think see, this is what it says. More than 50% of mobile sites are abandoned if it loads in more than 3 seconds. And this is almost mind-boggling if you look at it, right? So we came so far in like 10 years. 3 seconds, if you don't load, people bounce, right? And it's all about being how patient or impatient we are. And if you're in the B2C and selling products and commerce, this is your demographics. Young, always on the phones, very tech savvy, lot of devices, and impatient, of course. I have 2 teenage daughters, so I know what impatience is. So definitely. So I think this is what you're looking at. And the person sitting there, he wants to buy something before the bus number 10 comes, right? So that's where we are. That's what you're competing. And in reality, if you look at the whole diversity, there are almost like 10 billion mobile devices today. That's like almost growing like crazy. And almost 80% of them in the last 6 months have used smartphone purchase. This is kind of the global trend that's happening, which is 80%. And in some countries, I think this is the penetration is across the world. It's just not in Western countries or in Asia, everywhere. And see, this is a great trend, right? So if almost 80% of them are checking out all the reviews, while they're in your store, they're finding out the reviews. Is it cheaper somewhere else? What are people saying about it? And I do it all the time, right? So, and they're not going to download an app to do all that. They want to quickly check, right, the reviews, and it's a browser based. So this is so important for something to load right away. They could be in some corner of the store where there's no Wi-Fi, no good coverage, but it has to load fast. And this is something very interesting. This kind of the statistics came out. If you're a retailer, this should be scary. More than half of your consumers will switch to a competitor. So if it doesn't load fast, so these are the things that you have to really look for when you're looking at it. So again, there are many studies done that the load times are directly correlated to the page speed. This is almost down to the science. Companies like Soesta that Akamai recently bought, and Walmart, and even Amazon, they have kind of come down to every millisecond, every second is millions of dollars. They have the math figured out. They have the huge spreadsheet, they know. So, and today, this is where the average is, global average, but this is where you want to be. Less than 5 seconds and 3 seconds too, if you really look at it. And it's directly correlated. The dwelling time, the bounce rates, these are all the standard studies done. So this is not by us, this is by the industry standards. So this is what the challenge is, and it directly correlates to lost sales, right? So the challenge here is the opportunity cost. So you don't know how many people bounced because it's load slow. You don't know, you lost that sale or lost that view, lost that brand recognition. So this is really key. And if you really take a typical e-commerce site, the biggest problem is the images, right? So yeah, you may have some videos, maybe embedded. Most of them are on Vimeo or YouTube. So they go to the link and that's YouTube problem, right? But the images are your problem. So almost 80-85% of your web page is images. What else is there? JavaScript, DOM, some text and other stuff, right? So this is where you have to really take a look at images, and there are better ways to do that. So how do you fix the problem? So before you start fixing the problem, you need to first measure the problem, how big of a problem it is, right? And there are a lot of open tools. We use web page test. We actually kind of teamed up with them, and we run some of our servers on webpagetest.org. And there's Google Lighthouse, and there's GT Metrics. And of course, there are a lot of other commercial tools that really drill down to tell you what the real, what's wrong with your website. It's good, but you also need some fixes, right? So when we talk to a lot of the testing tool companies, they say what's wrong with your site, but then they'll give you a best practices list, and this is what you should do. But I think there's a lot of ongoing debate in the community saying that, okay, what should we test? Is it speed? Is it bounce rate? Or is it the load time? What are the different metrics? So Google started to kind of like really narrow down some of this and see what's really most important, and that's what you should look at. Payload reduction, which is very obvious. So you need to kind of see how much of payload you're downloading on your web page, and of course before and after that will kind of tell you. And there's something called first contentful paint, which is this is the first visual cue that you're going to have on the page. Like first time you see something, right? Whether it's a text or an image. So that's something that's a new metric and a KPI that they're asking you to look at. Can you hear me? Okay, right? And the other thing is a speed index. Speed index is like when the complete page has finished loading. So that's also a key part of it. And time to interactive. So this is something also very important. Like sometimes you see the page is probably loaded, but you can touch it, you can click it, and something is happening, right? It's almost like stop, because probably some JavaScript or some ad pixel is running in the background. It's not letting you finish, right? So these are all the different metrics that you have to look for, and constantly are changing. But I think this is kind of becoming the more and more norm nowadays. So if you attend any of the Google performance conferences, that's what they talk about. And they also have something called Lighthouse. So we did our own image analysis, and Lighthouse recommends, if you really look at it there, if you properly size the images and properly do all the formatting, you can almost cut down 3 seconds on a page. That could be almost 100% on your page load time. So there are many ways to do it. I think images are kind of the most underrated, taken for granted kind of optimization, because images problem have been there since web has started, like 20-25 years ago. And there are so many ways of really tackling the problem, whether you do through responsive images. We'll talk some of those techniques later on. But again, so there's always better ways to do it, So, and this is one of the things that Google talks about in one of the conferences. This is a Chrome Web Dev Summit, I believe. And so they have a lot of recommendations on how you have to do if you're using responsive images or any kind of image management that you want to do on your site. And one of the things is an appropriate format. So the format thing is interesting because, for example, if you're on Chrome mobile, WebP is a great format. It's one of the most optimized compared to JPEG or PNG, right? But in order to do that, you need to be able to understand the browser, the OS options of it, and then, okay, what does it support? And then you have to make some decisions. Wherever you make it, it doesn't matter. And the other thing is the compression. Compression is something that the tendency is like, just compress the hell out of it so that you always get smaller images and don't have to worry about it. But I think then what happens, the visual quality suffers, right? So you over compress or under compress. But what's the optimal threshold, right? So where do you stop and what do you do? So that's the thing. And again, the display size and density. This is where the device properties come into play. Understanding the device, the browsers. I understand the responsive web design kind of took away the need for removing the device. Yes, you don't need to know the device, right? But it's good. But the problem now moved from developers who don't care about the device to the DevOps guys who will have to deliver all these images worldwide right away, right? So the problem didn't really go away. The problem shifted from developers don't have to develop multiple sites to now to the DevOps guys will have to figure out how to deliver all this stuff and make it serverless and all that, right? So that's where. So understanding the device, the properties, the browser aspects of it is important. And if you do it on front end and any application, you have to write a lot of regular expressions, a lot of code, do all that. So those are the challenges. And lazy load. This is personally not my favorite. A lot of people like it. Lazy loading is the concept where you load only when you scroll. So when you're scrolling, things start loading it because because they don't want to load all the images in one shot and slow down the thing. It's a good idea, but I feel it's like a band-aid, right? I personally don't like it. It's personal preference, but Google recommends it, but I don't like it. Just because you just scroll up and you see these things, struggling to load. So again, all of these things, have to be considered when you're looking at, how you do the image management. So just to kind of summarize what we talked about, I know this is very hard to read, but just to give the complexities involved, right? Someone is doing it, or some combination of people are doing this. We have a lot of tools. You have original images. You have to determine a lot of the breakpoints for different form factors. You have to understand all the different formats, OS browser versions, so that you can pick the right format. And you also need to understand the some of the device aspects of it, so that you don't over compress, under compress, pick up the thresholds. And then, you of course use different types of open source tools to do image compression. You can always do that. And you have to upload and maintain all this matrix of images. For every image, you have like 3 sizes or 5 sizes or 5 different formats. Imagine you have 1 million images, right? So there's always someone struggling to map the right image to the right form factor. And of course, responsive coding. So, and you have to start mapping all of those, create different breakpoints, and some of the developers, you probably recognize this code. So this is just a sample of it, and you keep writing, and every time a new image format comes out, or a new type of device comes out, or new resolution, or then you have to kind of go back and change all of those, and then figure out how to really make it, accessible across your network, right? So these are all the different challenges from a development standpoint, and the maintenance, how much you have to do. So what we did is, so again, so we have, this is something called you don't want to drink your own Kool-Aid, as they say. So we always do very, try to be very objective about running tests and understanding, because we have a developer DNA in the company. So it's not like our developers are going to like it and just say that, oh, this is good. No, they want to test the crap out of it to make sure that it is good. So we kind of compared a different kind of techniques. So we took a sample of a big e-commerce site in Asia with almost 80% of mobile traffic, and we kind of run a lot of the different tests we did. Image editing tool, of course, it doesn't do much for you. It's just good for you. But build time optimization, this is where you are kind of creating different sizes and different formats, and either use a cloud image optimization tool or platform where you're keeping different images and different sets. So that only takes you so far. So a lot of them actually do 3 images: small, medium, big. So okay. So then that's what a lot of the companies do, because that's what the breakpoints they have. And it only gives you 20% optimization. That's about it. And then the next thing is the runtime, which we talked about in the responsive, where you start writing more, you understand the breakpoints, you understand different aspects of it, how do you format, how do you compress, and start writing a lot of those code into the thing. And it only gives you 40%. And of course, understanding the device will give you a lot more. That's what we have kind of found out. And again, just to kind of summarize, just to give you the history of CDNs, CDNs have been around for 20, 25 years now, and they're very static, caching, that's what they are. But I think it's time for us to really take that intelligence to the edge and make sure all the optimization, everything is done. Basically taking the user experience to the edge, right? That's what image CDNs do. And it's time for you to kind of take a look at and see, don't do a catch-all CDN, which does all the content, just like in a pipe, whether it's video or this thing. So make sure that images are the most important for your brand, for your commerce. So invest time and money into this effort into doing this. So again, this is kind of a summary. When do you want to consider an image CDN? Things are very obvious. Images, you're a big brand, high resolution images, and that's very important for you to make sure that they load properly and fast. A lot of images on your site, millions of images, especially e-commerce companies. And of course, this is something, the slow networks, that's something that you have to take into consideration when you're talking to the telling it to tier 2, tier 3 cities and villages. So you have to take a look at the latency on the networks so that lower payload is always better, period. So, and the business benefits I want to quickly run into. People say, okay, all this technical stuff is great, but how does it really help on the business side? SEO. As you know, Google really penalizes you if your mobile site doesn't load fast, as of last summer, I believe. And it's kind of a paradox that they want you to go responsive, but they have to load fast. So SEO is a huge thing that you have to look at. And everything else kind of falls through along with it. And I just want to kind of say what's Google's point of view. They kind of like listed us as, our product is called Image Engine, but they listed a bunch of, they started really pushing, this is a developers.google.com, you can check it out. They're recommending to start using image CDNs to really optimize it for a lot of your websites. And a quick case study, livespace.com, some of you may know, so they actually are running on Image Engine. And the amount of benefits they got are mind-boggling. So they gave us all these stats because the business side we never knew it increased their revenue. Look at the SEO. They increased 230% on SEO ranking just by doing this, nothing else, just by implementing image CDN. It's not a campaign, sale, nothing. So, and this is a site on Shopify in Singapore. They had their own image management, they had their own CDN, but in spite of all of those, we were able to decrease, bounce rate by 80% and make it much faster. So it doesn't matter what kind of it is, whether you have an existing CDN already. So something you need to look into is focus on images, and that is actually to some extent the low-hanging fruit. You should be able to really optimize it, and because you have other things to do, right? You're tracking users, you're trying to find out all those. This is kind of the summary, as I mentioned, in how the whole image CDNs work. Very simple. They have to have a CDN, they have to have image optimization, they have to have the mobile device intelligence at the edge. Those are the key factors. So the last thing, quickly, so this is where I think we talked about it. And optimizing on the formatting is very important. These things are evolving and changing. We actually even talked to the founder of JPEG 2000. He helped us actually to optimize some of those. So these image CDNs are constantly on top of all of these image formats so that you don't have to worry about it, right? And Magento, so we have a Magento plugin, for example, but a lot of the image CDNs really need an image store. Just go and get all the images from it and then deliver all the CDN. So whether you have a plugin, it's great. Even if you don't, it's okay. You're gonna get the images from some kind of a image storage like S3. So again, I think coming to an end, don't drive like that in Mumbai, but make sure your website is. So that's, I think I'm probably good on time.
Fantastic.
Thank you.